A lot of things to do when you're buying an investment property, and one thing that most investors want, of course, is to have happy tenants who are going to stay in there for a great long period of time. One way to make sure that you do that is by making sure that you pitch the property to the tenants you want and that are going to best fit that particular marketplace. This is a topic I want to discuss with Miriam Sandkuhler. Now, Miriam is the author of a great book I'll tell you about in just a moment, but also the founder of Property Mavens. Now, they are buyer's agents, and the book itself, which is a great read I read some time ago, called Property Prosperity, 7 Steps to Investing Like an Expert. Miriam, great to be talking to you again. Thanks for your time.
Hi, Kevin. How are you going?
Good. In the intro there, I was talking about happy tenants. And
Yes.
I know this is a passion of yours, is that you make sure you buy for your tenant demographic. Tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that. How do you go about doing that?
So, Kevin, it's about having an understanding of the type of property that you're after and what your objective is. So if you're looking for a capital growth property, you want to be able to hold that property for long term. So you need to attract a tenant who's going to be prepared to rent it from you. And so you've got to factor in what's going to appeal to that particular tenant. So, for example, if I'm buying property for clients in Ballarat, and they might have a cash flow strategy. I know that generally Ballarat's a really cold climate, so we always want exceptionally good heating in the place. We want insulation, because that can be the make or break as to whether or not a tenant will rent the property. Again, if you want to appeal to a family, you need to make sure you've got decent-sized bedrooms, good storage, there's a garage, maybe a shed. Whereas if you're appealing to, maybe a single or professional singles or a couple, you might not need all of that extra space or all of that storage. So by understanding who your market is to rent the property, you can make sure that as your buying decision, you're taking that into account.
Yeah, one of the important things is, I guess, as an astute investor, is to make sure you're not buying from the heart. Always use your head and think about these things logically, Miriam.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's about being practical. It's not about self-referencing. It's not about whether you like the property or whether you would live in it. Again, it comes back to understanding that demographic. The other thing I found too, and I'll use Ballarat as an example again, is it's a totally backwards market in some respects to, say, Melbourne. So when you're buying in a regional town where you think everybody wants to be close to cafes and shops and within walking distance, that's not necessarily the case. And so if you use that framework and apply it to a different area, you can very easily make mistakes. So again, you need to do your research in the areas in which you're buying, to understand who the tenants are, what do they want, and what do you need to provide them at a minimum to ensure they're going to rent your property from you at fair market value.
So what's the best way to do that, Miriam? Is it to visit the area and talk to some of the locals, talk to the agents and see what people do?
Well, talk to the local property managers. So do your research in your area, understand what the population's made up of, what the job opportunities are. So the usual growth drivers, your infrastructure fundamentals, why are people going there? And then by talking to the local property managers in the area and specifically maybe identifying suburbs that you're looking in, they can give you an indication of which sort of tenant tends to live in what particular suburb and what's the driver for them to be there. So, for example, some suburbs may have some great primary schools or a great high school or great private schools in that particular suburb. So that'll give you an indication of who would want to live there and who your likely tenant will be. Whereas other pockets might have, again, be very close to the city or the CBD area, and they might be prepared to pay a premium for a property within a block or two of the main drag so they can walk to those areas and enjoy that lifestyle.
Yep, great advice there. And that comes from Miriam Sandkuhler. Miriam, of course, you can contact her through the website at Property Mavens, Mavens. Miriam, great talking to you, and we'll catch up again in a few weeks' time. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.